Imagine waking up tomorrow, opening your banking app, and seeing a balance of exactly $0. Every single cent you've ever worked for, gone. Your parents' entire retirement fund, completely wiped out. Even your favorite charity's money just vanished into thin air. And it wasn't stolen by a masked bank robber or an anonymous internet hacker. It was taken by a man you trusted implicitly, a man considered royalty on Wall Street. This is the story of Bernie Madoff. For over 20 years, he pulled off the largest financial heist in human history, wiping out a staggering $65 billion. He fooled billionaires, elite Swiss banks, Hollywood celebrities, and even the world's most powerful financial regulators. But the most terrifying part, he didn't do it with complex, high-tech hacking algorithms. He did it using a centuries-old trick, a regular checking account, and a mountain of printed paper. How did one man blindside the entire global financial system? Let's break it down. Chapter 1. The Perfect Mask. To understand how Bernie Madoff stole billions, you first have to understand why nobody suspected him. Most financial scammers look shady. They operate out of shell companies in offshore tax havens. But Madoff, he was the ultimate insider. Starting in 1960 with just $5,000, money he saved up working as a beach lifeguard, Madoff built a highly successful, completely legitimate stock brokerage firm. He was a true pioneer in electronic trading. In fact, he was so deeply trusted and respected that in the early 1990s, he was named the chairman of the NASDAQ stock exchange. Think about that. He wasn't just a player in the game, he was one of the people who helped write the rules of modern trading. Because of this flawless reputation, Madoff developed an aura of absolute invincibility. Wealthy investors, elite country clubs, and massive hedge funds didn't just trust him with their money. They begged him to take it. He used exclusivity as a psychological weapon. If you asked him too many questions about how he made his money, he'd simply shrug and threaten to kick you out of his fund. This made people want in even more. It was the ultimate FOMO, the fear of missing out. Chapter 2. The 17th Floor Matrix. Madoff's entire empire was operated out of the famous Lipstick Building in New York City. On the 18th and 19th floors, everything looked completely normal. Dozens of legitimate traders were buying and selling stocks, phones were ringing, and computer screens were flashing. But if you took the elevator down to the 17th floor, you stepped into a completely different reality. The 17th floor was locked. Only a handful of highly cynical, deeply trusted employees had keycard access. And on this floor, no actual trading was happening at all. Madoff told his investors that he was using a highly complex, proprietary investment strategy called a split strike conversion. He claimed he was buying stocks of giant companies like Apple and Microsoft, and then buying options to protect against market crashes. It sounded incredibly smart, and it explained why his fund made a steady 10 to 12% return every single year, even when the rest of the market was bleeding cash. But here is the shocking truth. Madoff never bought a single stock for his investment clients, not one. Instead, when an investor mailed Madoff $1 million, the money didn't go to Wall Street. It was deposited straight into a standard corporate checking account at J.P. Morgan Chase. So, what were those employees on the 17th floor actually doing? They were using an old, outdated computer system to look up historical stock prices, and then printing out millions of pages of completely fabricated account statements. If you were an investor, your statement showed an incredibly beautiful, steady upward line of profit. But those numbers were nothing more than ink on paper. The money was just sitting in a bank account, waiting to be spent. Chapter 3. The Anatomy of a Mega Ponzi. If Madoff wasn't investing the money, how did he pay people back when they wanted to cash out? This is where the classic Ponzi scheme mechanics come in. A Ponzi scheme relies entirely on a continuous loop of robbery. When investor A wanted to withdraw their profits, Madoff didn't give them money made from stocks. He simply dipped into the Chase bank account and paid them using the fresh cash that had just been deposited by investor B. Now, most Ponzi schemes collapse within 2 or 3 years. Why? Because the scammers get greedy. They promise crazy returns like double your money in 30 days. That draws massive attention and burns through cash way too fast. Madoff was far more calculating. By promising a moderate, believable 10% return, his investors were so happy with their steady returns that they rarely withdrew their principal money. They just let it sit there for decades, watching their paper wealth grow. Because the money stayed in the account, Madoff had plenty of cash to fund a lavish lifestyle. He bought luxury penthouses in Manhattan, mansions in France, private jets, and a fleet of yachts. All of it paid for by the retirement funds of regular people who trusted him implicitly. Chapter 4. The Man Who Knew Too Much. What makes this entire saga truly unbelievable is that the government was warned about Madoff years before he was caught. Enter Harry Markopolos, a brilliant financial analyst and math whiz. In the early 2000s, Markopolos' boss asked him to reverse engineer Madoff's strategy so their firm could copy it. Markopolos sat down with Madoff's public numbers, ran the math, and realized within just 4 hours that something was horribly wrong. Mathematically, it was impossible for a fund to hit those exact numbers consistently without ever having a losing month. The market fluctuates. Madoff's returns didn't. Markopolos famously said there were only 2 possibilities. Either Madoff was using illegal insider trading, or the whole thing was a massive fraud. He took his detailed mathematical proof straight to the Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC. He handed them a document titled, "The World's Largest Hedge Fund is a Fraud." But what did the SEC do? Almost nothing. They were so intimidated by Madoff's prestige, his political connections, and his legendary status that they performed only surface-level checks. They asked Madoff if he was cheating. Madoff gave them a smooth explanation, and the regulators closed the case. For nearly a decade, the warning signs were completely ignored. Chapter 5. The Ticking Time Bomb. But a Ponzi scheme is a ticking time bomb. It can last for decades, but it has one fatal flaw. It requires a constant stream of new money, and it cannot survive a mass panic. In late 2008, that exact nightmare arrived. The global housing market crumbled, triggering the Great Recession. Major banks went under, and the entire stock market plunged into absolute chaos. Panicked investors all over the world suddenly needed liquidity. They needed real cash, and they needed it immediately. Within a matter of weeks, Madoff's clients flooded his office with withdrawal requests, totaling a massive $7 billion. But remember, the money wasn't invested in stocks that could be sold. It was just a cash pool. And over the years, that pool had been completely drained by previous payouts and Madoff's personal spending. Madoff checked his bank account. He didn't have $7 billion. He had only a few $100 million left. The music had stopped, and there were no chairs left. On December 10th, 2008, realizing the game was completely up, Madoff called his 2 sons into his apartment. He looked at them and confessed everything. He told them that his entire elite business was nothing more than one big lie. His sons, utterly devastated and shocked, made a difficult choice. They went straight to federal lawyers, who contacted the FBI. The very next morning, federal agents walked into Madoff's office and placed him in handcuffs. In 2009, Bernie Madoff pleaded guilty to 11 federal felonies. The judge showed zero mercy, sentencing the 71-year-old to 150 years in federal prison, essentially a life sentence. He spent the rest of his days behind bars. Thousands of investors lost absolutely everything. Entire charities were forced to shut down permanently. His oldest son, Mark, tragically took his own life exactly 2 years after his father's arrest, crushed by the public shame and relentless scrutiny. Bernie Madoff's story isn't just a tale of corporate greed. It is a harsh lesson in human psychology. It proves that no matter how professional a person looks, how elite their status is, or how many regulators vouch for them, if an investment return looks too good to be true, it almost always is. What do you think was the biggest failure in this story? Was it the greed of the investors or the utter blindness of the regulators? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dives into history's biggest scandals, and we'll see you in the next video.